let's start first by just introducing yourselves and the characters you play, and a little about both the characters, and ladies first.
Great. Okay. Hi, I'm Hawkins. I'm playing the witch in Into the Woods. She is the spellcaster. Yeah, the antagonist. The spellcaster, the terrible mother. Yeah.
My name's Riley McFarland. I'm playing the baker. He's kind of the one of the main protagonists in the story. His character is propelled by him and his wife's desire to have a child, and that's kind of what their journey is about in the show.
Okay. And in the last show, you guys were the couple, but now you're almost adversaries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's it like going? I mean, because you were rehearsing this when you were doing the last one. So what's it like to juggle those emotions and feelings and?
Yeah, it's really fun. I love working with Kira in any sense. So I'm really excited and glad to be working with her. In any way.
And I think that's part of the fun of the process of summer stock, getting to see people change roles and change characters so effortlessly because they're talented like Riley, and it's just an honor to watch the work during the day and then get to perform at night, something totally different.
Yeah.
And also, like the last show, this one's kind of dark too.
It gets there.
Yeah, it gets there.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's based around fairy tales, so it does have a lightness that Crucible certainly didn't have. But
Yeah,
it gets real.
There is a happy ending though. So which differs from Crucible.
Right. The only version I've actually seen of Into the Woods was the movie version. So once you get that, talk about a little about that, get that out of the way, kind of. And I was reading some differences, and there's quite a bit of difference as far as how this ends, mostly, or is there, or?
So I only saw the movie once.
Me too. I'm not as well versed in the movie, but I do know. I mean, it really did though stick quite closely to the musical script. I think things like a certain character doesn't die in the movie that dies in the musical, and
I think it was mainly cuts to the musical and just kind of changes in setting as far as like where the characters actually are when they sing a certain song and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the movie followed the script pretty closely.
Okay. And for anyone who hasn't even seen the movie version, basically the first half is about the fairy tales, and the second half is what really happened afterwards. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
At the classic ending to any fairy tale is they all lived happily ever after, and in life we know that never really happens. So Into the Woods explores what happy ever after really means, or is there really a happy ever after, because something has to happen afterwards, and that's what this explores.
And I think it's really interesting, especially for a character like Cinderella or Little Red, when you kind of know their classic renditions of who they are, it really makes them into these three-dimensional people who have problems and issues, and where Cinderella, doesn't just, oops, I lost my shoe. She chooses to leave her shoe, so it gives her a brain and purpose, right? So it's cool that this gets these popular characters into a whole different light.
Yeah. And anymore, especially Disney's reimagining certain characters like Maleficent and whatever. But Sondheim was kind of ahead of the time, sort of, with what he was doing with this.
I think so. Yeah, and James Lapine. I think they. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Well, let's talk about some of the. There's a lot of themes in this show. So, to you guys, I don't want to say what my thought on what the themes are, but what are your, what do you think the biggest themes in this show are, and where are they most evident, I guess?
Want and desire. Each character's kind of what they want in life is very evident, and that's what propels them throughout the show, and we see their wants change as the show goes on, which I think is really interesting.
And sometimes the dangers of what they want, not that you might think you want something, and then once you get it, what does that actually mean?
And also the consequences of what they do to achieve their want.
I think growing up is a really big theme in this. There's lots of children, lots of parents, so how are those children raised? What does it mean to come to kind of adulthood and to understand things that you never knew before? That's a lyric from the show. So yeah, that happens over and over. People have these kind of coming of age moments.
And one of the things is, parent-child relationships and, making sure you do what's right by your child and not failing, I guess. So, especially since you're kind of a new mother, can you talk a little bit about those kind of issues? And
Sure. I mean, my little girl is 10 months, so I'm not quite to the point of teaching her life lessons yet.
Right.
But certainly trying to model already my life in a way that she will hopefully want to follow. And yeah, it has given me a different perspective on what it's like to have a daughter, to care about how they feel, about me. So it's certainly added a dimension to what I can bring to this role.
Right.
Yeah.
And Riley, since I'm assuming you're not a parent yet, but as a child, someone's kid, I mean, how do you see your character and his relationship to the other characters? And
yeah, ooh man, that's loud. What's interesting about the baker is that his wish, his want in the show is to have a child, and once he actually has the child, he doesn't really know what to do with it. He doesn't know how to be a father. He doesn't know how he should act, which I think is really interesting because as a child, I always saw my parents as knowing exactly what to do. And I'm kind of realizing now that maybe they didn't, but they just did a good job of making it seem that way.
Okay. And then let's talk a little bit about the music. I mean, there's some... Actually, the song that keeps getting stuck in my head are two, Agony, which I can't sing. And then, and then the other one, which is the one by the witch at midnight, or...
The last midnight, yeah.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the music and how popular they are and how catchy some of them are. And...
Yeah, so Sondheim is classically known, at least in the musical theater world, as one of the most difficult composers to perform. He's notorious for just really difficult orchestrations coupled with really intricate melodies that don't follow the general rules of especially the musical theater canon. So it's been an amazing challenge to work this music up in 11 days just to get ready for performance. But yeah, I think this musical in particular of Sondheim's does have some of the most popular songs that have actually become popular on the outside, thanks of course to the Meryl Streep movie.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. When this show was on Broadway, there was a parody made in New York called Into the Words, because there are so many words in this show, and he writes so many patter songs. But what he's so good at is also writing really beautiful, lyrical, melodic songs to contrast those, which I think is really cool.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, I was reading that while this show debuted in 86, it came on Broadway in 87. So this is kind of its 30th anniversary. I mean, is there a significance to when a show hits a certain anniversary, or does it guarantee longevity, like in 100 years people still be doing this show, or?
I think once the show is this old, you can kind of say, productions of this show, I cannot imagine stopping. And especially because, again, the themes that we've been talking about are so universal, so relatable. It's already dated because it's set in fairy tale land, so it's kind of all time anyways. So this is certainly a show that has longevity.
Yeah, I would say that at its core, it's a show about humanity, and it just explores humans and how they act. And I think it's similar to Shakespeare in that way, that Shakespeare wrote about people and people's emotions, and that will never go out of date. It doesn't matter in what time period the musical is set in. If it's a show about humans, then that'll never go out of date.
And going back to the music, it's so varied. It's, you know, Sondheim, you can maybe tell, oh, that's a Sondheim song, but at the same time, he goes from, like, jaunty, you know, Fred Astaire kind of dance song to something, well, there's even a rap in this one. So, you know, it's just so diverse and varied, and can please a lot of people.
And I was also reading that at least the part of the giant mother, giant, whatever she's, there was some talk about her being a parable to the AIDS crisis. I was, and how that when she came and started destroying the community had to band together to tackle that crisis. I mean, not necessarily, you see other things that this could be, you know, compared to a parables of the story. I mean, can people, I guess, get other messages out of this? I mean, we talked about themes a little bit, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
All the fairy tales, I think, when they were originally written, were all metaphors, and Sondheim kind of takes that to the next level in this show by maybe making the metaphors a little more prevalent, but they're still masked by the fairy tales. So there's a lot of things that you would not necessarily get from watching the show once, but maybe from doing the show and researching the show, finding out later. Like I did the show in high school, and doing it again this time, I'm finding a lot of stuff in the script, like I don't want to give too much away, but I would challenge the audience to come more than once and see, because there's so much more to get from seeing it a second and even a third time. So I think that's something really exciting about this show, is that there's always more to uncover.
And like Riley was saying, because this show goes to the core of humanity, right? I think that opens the door for every single person in the audience can see themselves probably in multiple characters at different points during the show. And beyond that, can see, you know, systems in our society that are working in certain ways. So, like you say, if the giant was linked to the AIDS crisis, I think, yeah, this show is absolutely rife with things that can be compared to larger issues out there, and how they're working together and why they happened in the first place.
Yeah. And you mentioned you were in the show in high school. What character did you play then?
I played Jack.
Jack.
And I played the baker's wife in college.
The baker's wife. Okay. So different perspective, is that, I mean, and you obviously mentioned you getting things out the second time, but playing a different character, do you find differences in?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, when I was playing Jack, the whole time I wanted to be the baker. So this has been a dream role for a long time. So I'm really
almost
excited.
a little true for me too.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the witch the whole time.
Yeah.
No, I like doing the baker's wife though, and that's another really fun part about this show, is it's such an ensemble piece. Everybody has, even the most minor characters have moments that they shine and that they have their realization, and it's really awesome to be a part of this company and watch everybody shine in their moments.
Okay. And then my last question is, my second to last question is there anything else about the show you'd want people to know about or look for, or?
I'm really excited. We walk past the costume shop every day and look at the things that they're working on, and I am blown away. I think it's going to be gorgeous. So come just to see the pretty.
Yeah. And I guess just come prepared to see your favorite fairy tales in a different light. Because I think some people come to this show with the misconception that they're going to see classic fairy tale in their classic sense. But the point of the show is that the fairy tales are just shifted a little bit.
You do get a very satisfying end to the first act. And then we get to think a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, and then my last question is, what are you guys doing after this show? Are you back for Next to Normal? Are you going back to school? What's going on afterwards?
We're both back for Next to Normal.
Okay.
So which we're really excited for.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.